We've all seen this particular interaction or one very much like it. In fact, many times. Child A says something critical or rude or intrusive to child B. It's none of child A's business to say anything at all about it in the first place, but they do, and it's usually accompanied by a tone. Child B, the person hearing the intrusive or rude comment, thinking some version of, you can't talk to me like that, says something equally critical or rude to child A, possibly throwing in a little extra verbal or facial expression for effect. Then it quickly spirals into insults, barbs, snotty observations, sometimes punches are thrown. It's much like an exchange of gunfire, mortars, and artillery, just verbal and emotional. Our tendency as parents is to come into the middle of the fight and simply declare a ceasefire. And you've done it many times. Stop that. Or you two just get along now. Or give that back to her. Or you can't talk to your sister like that. We just make the fight stop. We also know how long this kind of solution lasts. You're much bigger than either child. So you can succeed in intimidating them to stop the noise that was bothering you, as well as the conflict that was making you feel guilty as a parent. But another similar conflict is inevitable. It's coming. You stopped that one, but the next one's coming, and sometimes within seconds. Sure, long-term loving and teaching are the solution to conflicts like these. That's what the entire parenting training is about. But until our children feel loved, and until they learn to be loving and responsible, we can teach our children how to respond to the rudeness of other people in far more productive ways. Wouldn't that be fun while we're in the process of learning to be loving? So Layla was scrubbing the bathtub, which was one of her assigned chores for the week. And her brother, Jacob, comes into the bathroom. And he sees what she's doing. Now, what she's doing is absolutely none of his business. But he couldn't resist, just couldn't stop himself. And he was seeing the particular cloth and the cleanser that Layla was using. And he said, well, that's a stupid thing to use. They just love to criticize each other. It makes them feel more powerful. The predictable argument then began within a second. And the argument was building rapidly as Mom entered the room. Instead of telling them to stop, though, or assigning blame, Mom wisely decided to love and teach. With no irritation or frustration in her voice, Mom said, "Who was the first person in the room?" Now, this is brilliant, because the question that parents usually ask is, okay, who started the fight? Oh, you're never going to get the answer to that. Who was the first person in the room, she brilliantly says. Because if you say what happened, the answers are invariably chaotic, conflicting, and rarely correct. So she kept it simple. Layla said, "I was the first one here. I was scrubbing the tub, but then Jacob," and of course she was going to launch into how she was right. Mom interrupted the commentary that would have gone nowhere. She said, "So Jacob came into the room and I'm guessing made some comment to you. Have I got that right so far?" The two children then, of course, vigorously disagreed about what exactly was said, each claiming to be completely innocent. Mom wisely avoided the exact details and said, so let me summarize. Layla was scrubbing the tub. Jacob came in and made some comment, don't care what it was, about what she was doing, but it was less than complimentary. It had to be, or she couldn't have responded in the way that she did. Am I getting closer? They finally agreed. Mom had him. Mom knew what had happened, even though she didn't need to know the exact words. And she said, "Layla, what Jacob said to you was either insulting or critical or rude or intrusive, and that's why you reacted badly. Correct? Layla went, of course, delighted to hear her side of the story vindicated. Yes. And then Mom says, and then you responded with something unkind, didn't you? Layla didn't like that question as much. She said, but he started it, and Mom said, I don't care. Not interested. Answer my question. You responded with something less than loving. I'm just asking. I'm not going to hit anybody here. Layla said, yeah. Mom said, and then it took seconds for you two to be in a fight. Just no time. So, still speaking to Layla, she said, would you like to be the smart one here? Oh, what kid doesn't want to come out of an argument being the smart one? Do you want to be the smart one here and learn how to avoid a fight when somebody speaks rudely to you? Well, sure, Layla says. See how this is developing differently from just stopping an argument? Mom says, let's go back in time. And let's imagine that Jacob has just said something snotty about how you're scrubbing the tub, the cleanser, the cloth, who cares? Doesn't matter. Just that he said something negative, okay? Layla said, sure. Mom says, is the tub any of his business? You're doing the tub. No. Mom says, so you are clearly doing the right thing. Mom was smart not to say for once, but you were doing the right thing, and he stuck his nose in where it didn't belong, right? Layla was thrilled to say yes. Mom says, but then you had a choice. You could have responded in a way that indicated your ability, your power to ignore his rudeness, or you could engage in a fight over, well, nothing, where nobody would win. One of those is a smart decision, and the other one is fairly stupid because it goes nowhere. Which choice did you make? Well, Mom had carefully led Layla along, so Layla didn't have a whole lot of choice. Layla said, the stupid one? I chose the fight. And Mom said, yes. Now, listen to the tone that I just used. I used the same tone as Mom. Mom just said, yes, you made the stupid choice. Just like if you follow a map and you turn left instead of right, you made the wrong choice. It's just wrong. She didn't tell Layla she was a bad person. Mom said, let's look at what you could have said instead. So Jacob says, what you're using is stupid. Let's consider what you could say. If you argue with him or you insult him back, you'll get a fight. And you've already said, that was stupid. Would you like to know what is very disarming to people who want to pick a fight? Sure. Mom said, gratitude and kindness. And Layla's going, so you want me to be grateful that he was snotty? Kids aren't stupid. Mom says, no, I didn't say that, did I? I just said gratitude. I didn't say grateful for his being snotty. It's very difficult to have a gunfight, Mom said, when one of the two people fighting is holding a flower. It's very difficult to build a fire when one person only has a bucket of water. Gratitude is like that. It's like putting water on a fire. Now, Layla's now thinking, but she's still going, I don't quite get it. Mom said, that's okay. Imagine that you're back at the tub and Jacob says something unkind. Now imagine instead of fighting, you say this. Thank you, Jacob, for your advice. I would be grateful. That's two gratefuls. I would be grateful if you would just let me do my job, and then I'll come and find you later to do something else together. End quote. Mom says, how do you think it would have gone if you'd said that? Layla said, probably better. Mom turned to Jacob and said, do you think the conversation would have gone better if Layla had said what I just suggested? And he kind of hung his head and said, probably. Layla objected, though, saying, but I wouldn't have felt gratitude if I'd said that. Probably not, Mom admitted. But the more you practice saying it, I'm grateful for your opinion, for example, you can learn to do that. You don't have to do what they say. Just thank you for your opinion. The more you'll mean it, and the less likely it will be that Jacob will continue to say unkind things in the base of the word grateful or thank you. The more we express gratitude, the more truly grateful we become. And when people hear our gratitude, they find it difficult to be unkind to us. It's that simple. Layla wasn't quite ready to let go of this bone. So she said, okay, but what if I'm nice to him and he keeps being snotty to me? Well, you can repeat yourself again. Say exactly the same thing. Thank you for your opinion. I'll come and find you in a minute and we'll do something. So you can say exactly the same thing, or if you don't know what to do, you can come and find me and calmly tell me that you need help with how to respond to your brother. Easy. Our children need to learn that unpleasant interactions with people are inevitable. They're going to happen all their lives. But if we parents love and teach our children, they'll be so much better prepared to respond in more loving and productive and happy ways. And it's our job as parents to prepare them in this way for the world that's coming.